Tired of the tears, the worry, the anxiety when starting over? Whether starting over from divorce, passing of a spouse, job loss, or other major life event, starting over can be hard. I know I've done it myself, but that's why I created Starting Over Wealth, the podcast. This network is created for women just like you who are ready to shift their mindset from worry to wealth. So click follow, subscribe, and join in on this conversation of Starting Over Wealth. Are you excited for this season? For most of us, when you're starting over, we think it as a dreaded season, a season we didn't ask for, maybe we didn't want, and we've lost who we are when we've started over. This is why it is a new season, not only for you, but also for me and this podcast. I am super excited to share with you what I have been doing for the last year and a half to really hone in and see how life has shifted, life has started over, and how to work in it, through it. And so you can come out on the other side with excitement, just like I am feeling now. Again, my name is Trisha Daniel. And not only have I been in finance and accounting for 25 years, more importantly, I have been a woman who has started over not once, but twice after divorce. I've been an executive who has been laid off. And recently, I was remarried after 15 years of divorce, had a blended family wedding with 6 boys, and then 1 month after our blended family wedding, my husband injured his spine. And we have been walking through a 22-month journey so far at the time of this recording of spinal injury, spinal surgery, and another cyst on his spine. And we will be going through again another surgery. So my life started over with remarriage, but then also life started to teach me something else. Because what if something happened to you or your family, your children, and life suddenly, because of a medical injury, maybe there's a car accident, life will suddenly shift. And being able to have the tools in place to shift with it, and it's hard. I can't deny it's hard, but what I've been able to see through it, what my husband, my new bonus sons, my 2 boys have been able to see through this season of extreme change, we could have said, "Wow, I'm so unlucky." I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, "Wow, you're so unlucky. I can't believe this has happened to you. Are you really going through something like this again?" Have you ever had those people that come to you and you're like, no, look what God's doing. I may not have asked for this. I know it's really hard, but wow, I can see the strength I'm gaining. I'm being able to break free of so many different things that I didn't realize that was holding me back. And through the last 22 months, I've been able to see of, wow, my purpose. It has shed off so many layers. So I may not have asked for this season. It may be a very hard starting over season, but because of it, and because I had the tools in place to walk through it, I was able to come on the side with a knowing who I am, an incredible strength, and a greater network of women around me that I would have never seen if I wouldn't have gone through this. So, welcome to this new season for you, for me, and for this podcast as we go through that framework, the framework that I had already been using when starting over. I started sharing with other people, and then I had to use it myself again when the life suddenly shifted. So let's go through that framework in this episode of Starting Over Wealth. First, it's your identity. It's that S. It's that starting part. Because Starting Over Wealth Network is not just a name, it is an acronym that was downloaded to me in April of 2021 when my mother passed. And just known to being sown, SOWN, back into earth to thrive again. That when suddenly our seasons, our lives shifts, our seed, who we are, gets shifted to into a whole other set of soil that maybe we're not familiar with, but has so much more nutrients that sometimes we don't see, but is there to help us grow. So that S, that starting, is to help us start again, rediscover who we are. who God created us to be, our identity. Because I guarantee you, if you look back to your childhood, that little 7-year-old girl, what were her dreams? What were her aspirations? She didn't identify with that man. She didn't identify with that job, that title. She didn't identify with that thing in life that we usually in our 20s, 30s, 40s, and on, we end up identifying with something else besides who we are. So when life suddenly shifts, all of a sudden, those layers that we had built on top of ourselves and lost who we are suddenly get shedded away. And so that's what happened with me in this last season, being able to sit back and go, okay, I've started to layer some things on top of me. Who am I now in this season, in this shift? So I want you to ask you that same question. One, first of all, who was that little girl? Think back. Think back to those memories of when you were 7. Who were you? What were your dreams? Did you love to dance? Did you love sports? Were you happy? What made you happy? Was it a song? Was it an activity? Just think back to that little girl. And what would that little girl say to you right now? She's not going to throw shade. She's not going to say mean things. Because how many of you, and again, I'm guilty of it, how many of you, the negative talk to yourself, especially when life has shifted, whether it was something you did, something somebody else did, something that was completely outside of your control, it's hard. It's hard, and the negative talk completely comes in. But stop yourself and think of that 7-year-old girl. What would she say to you? Well, usually she would extend your hand and pull you back up, especially like on the playground. Imagine that. Pulls you back up, like, let's go. Let's go do this. You may have fallen down, skins your knee, but come on, let's go. How is she telling you to go right now? But being able to see who you really are. What were those dreams? So that S, write it down on a piece of paper. Just write down the S for starting. Starting to discover your seed, that gift that God gave you. Genesis 1:29. God gave us a bearing seed means that gift to multiply. It was who we are. It's what makes us excited in life. It's what brings us joy. Whether it's our family, whether it's a job, whether it's something in our lives that's just bursting and it's ready to go. Is it ready to go? So next is O, for overturning your soil. I know that kind of sounds like a fancy name, but a lot of times what happens when you start over, our soil is hard. Our hearts are hard. We have walls built up around us. After my first divorce, in separation from my youngest son's dad, I barely dated for 9 years. I built up completely wall after wall after wall. I fortified my wall. So for 9 years, I barely dated. I was easy to say, next, no, not a, no, thank you. I buried myself in work. What are some walls and some hardening things in your life that you've built up around you to either say, it's fine, I've got this? A lot of people tell us, put on your big girl pants, pull up, let's go. And I used to be the same way. That's what I used to tell people all the time. And I have found in this next season, in this last season of starting over, is that softer side, being able to soften my soil, break it up, being able to really see what's underneath there. If you were a farmer, imagine this, a farmer, when he first goes out to plant, if the ground is hard, he's not just going to throw seed on it. Nothing's going to grow. He has to first go out there and break it up, really till it, put in new nutrients, really get it ready to plant. Same thing with us. We first found our seed, right? Our identity, who we were, but we can't really plant it on hard soil with a hard heart, with walls around us. We've got to break them down. We've got to really discover, who we are in this new arena. So what are some things you need to do to break up that soil, to really till it, because you can't really expand and grow if you're not in a place of growth. A lot of that comes around healing. Do you have a therapist? That was a hard who else? That was a hard one for me. I had a mentor, who was a licensed therapist, and first thing she asked me, "Do you have a therapist?" I'm like, "No," because I always thought going to therapy was something for if something was wrong with you. I completely thought that something was absolutely wrong with you. It has been through this last season that no, everyone should have a therapist, especially if you are in a not just a starting over season, but a growing season. Being able to have the tools in place to see things more clearly, react more clearly, grow more clearly and more abundantly. That healing part of your soil, who you are, breaking up those hardening around you is very important. So, what tools do you have in place to heal, to break up that soil so you can expand? So, do you have a therapist? Do you have other women around you can lean on? But what are those things that you need to break up and be a little more aware of? So first is that S, that starting, that seed. Who are you? O is that overturning your soil, knowing, where are those things that you need to break up, having a plan in place to be able to plant going forward. Financially, since this is the Starting Over Wealth podcast, financially, what is that plan to take your first two steps? If it's starting over divorce, it's kind of reclaiming your bank accounts, knowing some of your numbers, and we have an easy way to do that. I will let you know. Stay tuned to this podcast because I've got great tools that I cannot wait to share with you that I've been working on for the last year and a half. But there's things in place to start getting more comfortable and knowing and being more confident in your money and that overturning season. The third piece is wealth. And I know, again, I'm not talking about red bottom shoes. I'm not talking about that fancy purse. I'm not talking about the big house. I'm talking about wealth, the 12th century definition of wealth that my mentor, Patrice Washington, loves to share on stage is the overall state of well being. It's not being rich. Rich is something external. I'm talking about the eternal. I'm talking about your overall state of well being. And I break this down into pillars. W is for wisdom, gaining that wisdom one by one. I lean into scripture. I love to start with scripture. That is a big piece of my wisdom, definitely in this season and going forward. E is earnings, the money you're bringing in, but what are you putting into practice to help that seed, that gift you have inside with you burst and be able to produce income in this new season when you need it most? A is for assurance, rebuilding that confidence within yourself that you've got this, you can do this, you can stand on your own 2 feet. I'm grateful for all the work I had done before. So when my life suddenly shifted with my husband's injury, I had the confidence to get us back up. And now I was a newlywed caregiver and bonus mom to 4 boys. So that was six boys total. And 6 boys total plus my husband. And all of a sudden I was carrying, but I had the tools in place to be confident and be courageous in that season because I had done the work. So that was A for assurance. L is for love. I'm not talking romantic love. I'm talking about being able to love yourself, who you are in the new season. Because that's really hard. Again, that goes back to that negative talk. We don't want to, talk nicely to ourselves a lot of times, but being able to love ourselves and then lean into the love that God has for us. I do. I have a hole in the wall in my bathroom where I threw my heel, my shoe at the wall, so angry at God. Of why are we going through this again? I actually leave that hole in my wall in my bathroom as a reminder, to be able to feel, but be able to lean in of God wasn't doing that to me. He was doing it for me because he loved me and what he showed me. when that season was over was mind blowing. So lean into that love for yourself and the love God has for you in this season. T is for trust. Our, especially after divorce, a lot of times our trust is gone. When we've been laid off from a job, our trust is gone. And I know we've always told our kids, once you lose trust, it's hard to regain it. It's hard to regain it. And it's not something that just instantly happens. Again, I've been through these long seasons where it takes trust and time, and give yourself time, give yourself grace to be able to trust others, trust yourself, and trust God again when life is shifted. What is one thing you need to lean into to trust again? And I would first start with yourself. That was a hard thing for me because it was a lot easier to point the finger at other people. Trusting yourself again in this season. Write it down. What is one way that you need to trust yourself again? And for a lot of us, it's the fact that we've got this. You can do this. You can do the hard things. You can get there. For first, starting with wisdom, learning things. E, earnings. A, confidence, that trust, that assurance. L, loving yourself again. And then it leads to that trust. But first, start with the steps. Last is health. And this is a big thing for me. For some of you that don't know my story, because I thought, I've got this, I'm good, I'm fine. After I was laid off, I was working a full-time job, and then once I got a full-time job again after I was laid off, I started a side company to earn extra income for me and my 2 young boys at the time, as a single mom. Problem is, I would stay up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning working on those additional clients, then get back up early in the morning, sometimes then drive to the downtown area at 6 o'clock in the morning to one client, 7:30 to the next client, and then 8:30 go to my full-time job. I was exhausted and put myself into full adrenal fatigue. My hair was falling out. I had brain fog. My throat started to look like a football player because my thyroid started to swell. I have 4 cysts and a nodule on my thyroid. Eventually, I got a tumor in my salivary gland. That usually it's for old men and smokers. I got a tumor in my salivary gland that had to be removed, and half my face was paralyzed. I didn't take care of myself in my starting over seasons. Health is a huge piece. Physical health, mental health, getting your rest is huge. For me, I have literally leaned into I used to be actually a fitness trainer. My first degree is in health and sports sciences. So I was very, very active in helping with depression, anxiety by using physical activity. So running, exercise. The problem is I took that to an extreme. I thought the only way to get through it was to work harder, faster. I've learned in this season to give myself grace, lean into breathing, slowing my breathing down, because the optimal breath, if you lean into pulmonologists, is 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out, which will result in 5.5 breaths per minute. We were meant to breathe slow, but the average person breathes 26 breaths per minute. There's a reason we're anxious. There's a reason we have anxiety. So I've learned to start slowing my breath down and really leaning into breath work, meaning how does the breath work? And that's why I love being able to, whether I'm in the car, at home, have breathing exercises that I help myself breathe through that anxiety and bring peace to myself wherever I am and whatever time, because health is super important. So that is my tool of wealth. So S for starting, O for overturning your soil, W for wealth, and N is that network. Through my starting over seasons, I have learned the value of bringing other women into my life. A lot of us lean into shame and isolating ourselves, thinking no one has gone through this. I can't talk to anybody about this. I am full of absolute shame, humiliation, and you isolate yourself. After my divorce in 2007, I didn't barely talk to anyone for 6 months, completely isolated myself. And then after separating from my youngest son's dad for 9 years, it was easier just to work and spend time with my children. It wasn't until really in 2020 when I found a podcast, started leaning into other women's voices, and found a network of women who have gone through the things just like I did. But when I started sharing my story, they're like, wow, I didn't know that. And me too, I've gone through that also. And it has built an absolutely amazing connection that now I've connected with women around the world. I was just on a call the other day with women in Dubai and Jamaica, United Kingdom, and all over the United States. And it's been an absolute incredible journey of knowing how important having a network of women around you, surrounding you, praying for you, being there for you is in this season. And that's why in network accountability with other women is so vital and why this community is super important for you. As part of the Starting Over Wealth Network, we have started a community called the Wealthy Rebuilders, being able to end wealth or overall state of rebuilding, starting over in wealth, that overall state of well-being, becoming wealthy again, being able to rebuild your life again. So this is why we've started a Starting Over Wealth Network, Wealthy Rebuilders Community. So I would love for you to join us as we rebuild, as you rebuild, whether starting over a divorce, passing of a spouse, job loss, whatever starting over journey you're in, you can rebuild too with a firm foundation, understanding who you are, having the tools in place to overturn your soil, becoming in your overall state of wealth again, and leaning into that network. We have experts, we have trainings, and we have that again, that community of women that are going to be there for you. So, S, starting, O, overturning your soil, W, wealth, and N for network. And that is the foundation of Starting Over Wealth, the network, the podcast that is here for you. So I can't wait for you to tune in every single Tuesday where we bring in experts and women that have gone through things just like you, women that are there to give you tools. And many of these experts will be leaving extra trainings into our community for you to tune into, to you to use at any time. So welcome to this new season of Starting Over Wealth, this new season for you, for me, and for this network. And thank you for tuning into this episode of Starting Over Wealth, the podcast. If this episode was epic for you, we would love a 5-star review. This helps us share with other women who are ready to shift from worry to wealth when starting over. And if you would love to join our network, don't forget to text SOWN to 1-844-540-0415, and you will not miss another episode, another opportunity to join in a network of women just like you.